Hey everybody, I'm going to skip the formalities because we're running a little late. Running a lot late. Anyway, so we're going to do part of the show, I guess, now, and then we'll complete it in the second half. I wanted to touch on some of the things that we're all dealing with as a direct result of nanopoisoning and nano exposure and cellular genetic breakdown and a whole host of other things that we're dealing with. And I want to deal with partly I had no idea it had that much of an impact. I want to talk about some of the things we deal with psychologically. And we all go through it because we've all been conditioned, we've all been beat up, we've all been pounded. I always say we've all gone through the anvil of life. In other words, we go through the trials and tribulations that go in life. Some of them might be as a result of God trying to wake you up, try to steer you back on the right track. Some because you've done something really stupid and you paid the piper. All in all, it's about, again, conditioning and thinking, and in the process of the thinking. Now, I had a situation happen to me this week that made me realize something, and I had a couple things happen as well. Another colleague of mine up north got a call from somebody in the United Kingdom, and they were saying that they felt they were too far gone, and they were, no hope, no chance. They were finished. They have the nanomore gallons, what I call nanopoisoning. Anyway, I wrote her back and said, tell the guy that thinking he's got is not from him, but it's being piped in. It's being introduced into your mind. It's coming in through frequencies. It's coming in through your Wi-Fi, your cell phone, your towers, whatever transmission device is out there. It's being piped through. It's being piped through the very atmosphere. If you ever want to do an experiment, take a laser, one of these high-powered green lasers, and fire the beam. That beam will show a lot of reflective material in the beam. That is not dust. Dust does not reflect light. Metal reflects light. Glass reflects light. Particulates will reflect light. Dust does not reflect light unless it's got a metallic component or a glass component or some other component that is not normal. This is a transmission material, a conductive material that allows for transmission. This is called carbon nanoparticles or silicon nanoparticles, which are highly conductive and which can now allow for transmissions through the air. You know this because when you fire your remote control on your TV or stereo system, you can now transmit a signal going from wherever you are in the room to the unit, because you have these particulates that allow for that conductivity. Well, now because you are loaded with nanometals, nanoparticulates throughout your body, the artificial intelligence can now send a transmission right directly inside of you, and it can now access you just like if you were a data chip or a RAM chip or any other kind of microchip in a computer system. This allows it to have access to you. So if you want to do an experiment, if you want to conduct an experiment to see how artificial intelligence can actually access you and cause a high level of extrapolation from you, do something with a high level of focus. Okay? Do something with a high level of focus, whether you're playing a game, solving a puzzle, figuring out a mathematical equation, doing some heavy-duty research, whatever you do that requires a great deal of concentration. And when you do this, keep in mind that you want to be focused in two fronts: what you're doing and observing in your mind. Okay, observing what's going on, and watch what starts to transpire the moment you start to access, especially information that may be considered somewhat on a gray area or an off-limits type of area, or an area of research that the AI understands that you're dealing with to try to do something, to expose or whatever. Watch what transpires. For some of you, it'll be painful memories that will be coming to the surface. Some of you will have thoughts that will come in from nowhere, thoughts that you have not thought about for 20 or 30 years. And at the same time, observe you. Observe how fatigued you are starting to get, how tired you're feeling, or how sleepy you're feeling. The reason this is going on is because it's inducing you into a certain level of sleep where you are like almost in a semi-dream state, that daydreaming state, you know, what a day for a daydream, that kind of thing, you know. Now, when you're in that daydreaming state, you are in somewhat a semi-hypnotic or semi-sleep state, which again allows for you to go into that dream state, which allows for this to slip in and to access information from your brain. You're thinking you're daydreaming. You're thinking that you are just having one of those moments or surreal moments where you're seeing things. And you may see things come out that may cause you anxiety. You may see things that may come out that may cause you fear. See things that may come out that may cause you anger. You may see things that may come out that may cause you a certain euphoric effect. You may see situations occur that you have interacted with, and all of a sudden that memory starts to become distorted. Or things happen that didn't happen in that memory. This is all being induced by artificial intelligence that's activating your brain. This is called data mining. Data mining, and you happen to be the mine. You happen to be the database that it's accessing. So when you start this experiment, you may see that this may transpire, and you may be surprised what comes out. You may see anxiety thoughts come in. You may see sexual thoughts come in. You may see stress thoughts come in, fear thoughts, anger thoughts. And some of these thoughts may be really, really distorted thoughts, really ungodly thoughts, you know, thoughts that you would never have conceived of in your own thinking. This is again being induced. This is again being, it's trying to seduce you into this to create a reaction. And if you want to try another experiment, I'll show you another experiment. I made these things what I call repulsors. And anybody can make them. They're pretty simple. What you need is to get some either ceramic magnets or neodyme magnets or both. And they don't have to be big. The size of a nickel will suffice. And what you do is you put them on a piece of duct tape. And then what you do is you tape so that you put the tape around the edge of the magnets, and then one by one insert about 10 or 20 of these magnets. But when you put them in, make sure they are repelling. They're in complete repelling. Okay. So make sure that they are repelling. And put about 20 in a row and then seal it. Now, you're going to be fighting with the magnets, especially if they're neodyme. They're going to give you a battle. So you might want to mix neodyme with ceramic in order to get this to work. So when you get about 20 of them in, fold a piece of tape over so that they stay in place. And then tape it up so they don't come shooting out. And if you do an RF, I got an RF meter or magnetic meter that checks EMFs rather, an EMF meter that checks the EMF field. If you mix them with about 20 of them, you get about a 6 to 9 foot radius where this will now put out a pulse from this field. It actually pushes the magnetic field out. If you wear 2 or 3 of those usually, and you wear a pair of dark sunglasses, and where you have to place them either on your belt or in your pockets, 2 in the front, 1 in the back kind of thing. And when you go into a store that's got a camera, wear some dark glasses. I went and bought some safety glasses that are dark, sunglasses for safety that cover the whole eye. And anyway, when you go inside, you may see, and I thought I was mental. Yeah, we all do. You may see when you go inside that the cameras in the stores are actually beaming signals through your eyes. This is one of the ways it wants to get in, because it's a direct access to your brain. When you cover the eyes and create a magnetic field around you, what will wind up happening is you may find a staticky, shocky-like effect on the top of the head because you've blocked the AI from accessing you. Every time you go into a store, you are being beamed so that while you're there, you start buying stuff you don't need. Or you stay in the store longer than you want to stay in because there seems to be this thing to keep you going and going and going shopping. Okay, this is another way that the AI is keeping you preoccupied from the reality that's going on today. So I wanted to present this to some of you because some of you are saying, man, oh man, I get those thoughts. And I thought I was the weird one. You're not weird. What's going on is you are having a direct pipeline directly sounded into you. You have to understand, especially those of you from my generation or our generation or the 50s generation. We were the prototype. They injected us with junk DNA. They injected us with live culture. Then they started polluting the air with nanoparticles in the 60s with all these factories without any kind of static filter, whatever. That didn't come to later on to about the mid-70s, early 80s. And all this stuff was being released into the atmosphere that we were absorbing. Okay, we were consuming it, fell on our food. Then in the 70s, they decided to load our food up with nanoparticles. Then in the 80s, they started spraying glyphosates and atrazine and all kinds of wonderful xenoestrogenic compounds that would cause, again, more mental dysfunction for both men and women. Then in the 90s, we got irradiated. Everything was being irradiated. Everything was coming from overseas, had to be irradiated. And now we got flash pasteurization, and all this other horse hockey. So our generation has been through the ringer, but the difference between our generation and the current millennial generation, the current millennial generation doesn't have a hope in hell. None. They have not eaten anything safe since 1986, and we had, at least for a short period of time, some things that we were consuming that had the capacity to at least give us some kind of foundation. And a lot of us who are ethnic or European or whatever ethnic background you came from, whether you're from the Caribbean, South America, Central America, Europe, Asia, whatever, and you ate those traditional foods, you would have had a better foundation as a result of it. Anyway, long story short, the kids today are not eating anything but nano. It's in the air, it's in the water, it's in the food. They're constantly being inundated. I actually would hate to see the future children being born because the nanoparticles do translocate throughout the body, and that would include the reproductive system. So that would mean that would very much involve the seed as well as the egg having these nanoparticles. And since they self-assemble, self-replicate, and self-repair, they would be able to integrate or interface with the genetic code and the proteins and become a completely taken in by whatever baby is being born. And this is a scary concept because we don't know what level of mutation this is going to create or how easily it's going to be affected by the current technology today, because everything is frequency. And most of us today who are able to fight or are fighting or get very angry at what's going on is because we don't have that connection. This generation that's being born today may just be the future interface with the current AI system. Can you imagine that? Human drones completely under the control of a machine? That is where it's all going. I shouldn't say it's all going. That's where it's at right now, and it's being developed to become more integrated into this artificial intelligence. These futurists that want to live forever and want to be God, as they call it, they have no idea that this godhood is going to require a price. A direct interface with an AI means a complete takeover by the AI. Whatever connections that they are talking about today will leave them in the most vulnerable state. There's no way that the AI will not be able to circumvent whatever interface that they have with them. They want to put in a lace in everybody else's brain because they're saying that the future generations of human are going to be more evolved and more advanced physically as well as mentally, and that we as the normal humans are not going to be able to compete. This, again, what we're talking here is again a direct manipulation or interference with the proper evolution of the human race. And by interfacing or integrating this genetic material with nanotechnology and artificial intelligence, this is creating something far more dangerous than we've ever seen. This is going to be a return to another day and age when humanity was under the control of one program. When you read the book of the Bible, and this is my perspective of it, so I don't mean to impose my interpretation on it, but I want you to see this perspective. When you look at the Tower of Babel, and you read there that in the heavens they were having discussion, and the concept was they had their one mind and one language. That's programming. They are under one program and one directive. They were following the directive they were following was based on the programming they had, and they were able to communicate in a programming language. In other words, they were able to talk to each other through the program. And when God separated them from that program, nobody could understand each other, because now the program was no longer initiated for them to be able to communicate. It broke up that one world thinking or one world communication. Guess what? We're going right back to it, whether we want to or not. Because I wouldn't call them the leaders of the planet, the ones that are running the planet are directing humanity back into that direction. It was broken off once because of what the potential problems would be. Imagine being completely assimilated by a program. You won't question nothing. You won't say nothing. You basically do what you're told, follow the directives, and obey the command on the prompt. That's where it's at. And this is, I mean, again, it sounds something out of a sci-fi movie, but when you look at the biblical times, it doesn't mean that they were very archaic by any stretch of the imagination. In most cases, they were very advanced societies back then, just as advanced as we are in the scientific realm, if not more. The only reason we can't find it is because it's been wiped out by some form of nanotechnology of that time. You know, it's funny that the only things that have survived in these architectural digs are things that were made out of silica or carbon. Everything else was wiped out. That makes me go, Doesn't that make you go, Okay, so I'm not sure what we're doing now. If we're going to continue with the show or we're going to start it again. I'm not sure what's happening here. So I'm just going to keep talking until either the music plays or something happens here. So again, I'm not sure how because we're already at 9 o'clock. So anyway, I'm going to keep talking. And if she plays the music, then we'll start the second half, unless we're just going to have one big half. Okay, we got the music, so we'll start the second half afterwards. All right, we'll see you in a bit.